Hello and welcome to the second of three films that we are producing for the Liverpool Methodist District. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Mel, and in our second film, we are talking all about mission in the light of the coronavirus. So in our current landscape, how do we do mission well? Now, Rachel, in our first film, we explored what is mission and what's our one thing. You had a fantastic parallel that you could draw between mission and the story of the Exodus in the Bible. Now, I'm wondering if there's a possible link between where we are right now in the middle of this pandemic and the Exodus. Surely there are no similarities here, are there? Or links that can be made?
Well, bearing in mind, disclaimer again from the beginning, we are not in the same context and situation as the people were in the Exodus. It's a totally different context. But I still think there are things that we can learn in this time of change. Let's think for a moment about Moses and the Israelites as they stepped out of Egypt. Once Pharaoh finally said, "You can go." They had no idea what to expect, did they really? And I can imagine if I'd been one of those Israelites in slavery for all those years, dreaming of what freedom might look like and how we might escape. And I kind of wonder whether actually in my wildest dreams I would never have imagined leaving Egypt in the way that the people of God did. That it was hastily, it was in the middle of the night, and they just went. And it's not what you would kind of best case scenario dream of, is it? And it's about thinking about, well, what did they know and what didn't they know? They didn't know where they were going, and they didn't know what to expect. Because it tells us in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 40 that they'd been in Egypt for 430 years. Just think about that for a minute. 430 years of one thing, of a particular context, of living in a particular place. That 430 years ago from now is 1590.
Wow, that puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, so imagine that your whole frame of reference, your whole life has been in one settled place. Okay, that has changed over the years and life has got worse and harder for them over the years. But they knew what it meant to be the Israelites in Egypt. Even if it wasn't easy, they didn't know what it means to be the Israelites outside of Egypt. Now everything has suddenly changed. Even Moses, when he ran away from Egypt early on after he'd killed the Egyptian and goes into the wilderness and has the encounter with God at the burning bush who sends him back, although he'd left, even leaving this time is totally different circumstances. And the first time he was so hastily leaving because he didn't want to get caught. He didn't have time to admire the view and make a note of where he was going and just in case I pass this way again. It is totally different. And therefore, what does it mean to be the people of God in a landscape that has changed so radically? And I guess for us, it's similar in the sense that for 430 years, if not more, the mission of the church has been dependent on a building. And suddenly, if the building is taken away from us, how do we respond in a different landscape? And I think that's where the similarities with the Exodus and where we are with the coronavirus fit in. That it's about what do we need to learn? What do we need to relearn about it? What it means to be the people of God when things that are familiar have been taken away from us. And that's what was happening with the Exodus, as they left and had to regroup and rethink and learn new things about God, and new ways of doing things that would shape their future once they got to the promised land.
And I think in the current climate, there have been so many learnings that we've all had. We've learned things about ourselves. We've learned things about God. We've learned things about church. We've learned things about mission and evangelism and probably growth as well. You know, how do you grow in a time like this? So this has been an immense period, the last couple of months of just learning and learning and learning. So it's, I can see the similarity there.
And they didn't know when they left Egypt that they were going to be 40 years getting to where they were going. They didn't know, so much. They didn't know what they didn't know in that.
Yes.
And for us, we know what it's like to be church with a building. What we don't know or didn't know or don't know is how long we're going to be without a building. And I kind of thought lockdown, by July we'll be back to normal. And it's like, seems so far removed from normal still, and we're, it's only just June. What is God trying to help us to get our heads around? What is he trying to say to us and help us to learn? And what are we carrying with us on the way? The Israelites were told to take, be ready with certain things to take with them, and ask their neighbours for their, some of their belongings to take with them, as well as the unleavened bread. So some things they took with them, didn't they, as they left? And other things they gathered or learnt along the way. And maybe that's sort of the beginning of a conversation about what are we bringing with us into, or have we brought with us into lockdown, that we want to carry on carrying and taking with us into the future? And what are some of the things we've acquired or learned along the way that actually open up new possibilities and opportunities for mission? What do we need to let go of? That we left Egypt with thinking this is going to be really useful, and actually we ditched it a long time ago because we can't use it.
And at the end of this video, again, like we did in the first video, we'll have discussion questions, so we'll be able to touch on that and tease some of those ideas out. And hopefully you at home in your groups, you'll be able to do this as well and come up with some really good thinking around what you've learned. But in the jobs that we have, we get to have a lot of conversations with people, and we get to be a little bit nosy and hear what people are doing and tell some good stories, which I think is a real great part of our role, is that we get to share good practice and share exciting things that are happening. So I wonder, what are some of the things that you've heard at the moment of where churches have had to reimagine how they're doing mission right now, because we don't have the church buildings open and we're able to be in contact with people. So what have you heard about how people are still doing mission right now?
I think there's a variety of ways. A lot of people have just moved things online, whether that's gatherings of different kinds and gathering online for worship, for prayer meetings. And I've heard churches talk about actually we're getting more people coming to our daily prayer meetings. We've had them on different days of the week. And we used to have a prayer meeting once a week. We're lucky if we get, handful of people, but people are coming, regularly, and more people are coming and praying on a regular basis. So things like that, and online coffee mornings to meet, to chat, and just to share their own experiences and life and what's going on in a different way. And they're the sort of the more generic things in that sense. And mission opportunities, I think people are realising that they can connect with neighbours in different ways. Because people are around at different times than normal, whatever that is. Whether it's offering to do shopping for one of their neighbours. You were telling me earlier about a story of someone from your church who's taken up that opportunity.
Yeah, so this one of my friends, he's a teacher and he's not been able to go into work at the moment. So he, understands mission as a corporate thing, but also as an individual thing, something that he is called to do as a disciple of Jesus Christ. So he went around his street, he knocked on people's doors, posted things through their door and said, "Hi, this is my name, this is the number where I live. If you need anything, I'm I'm up, I'm about, I'm able-bodied, I'm happy to do shopping for you, I'm happy to do this, that, or the other. And then he also took it a step further by saying, and I'm a Christian. And he said, this might not be your cup of tea, but if there's anything that you would like prayer for, please let me know, and I would be privileged to pray for you. And as a result, he's just had so many people that have just opened the door to him and said, I would love prayer, thank you. And they've shared with him about some of the things that they're going through in life. And he's been able to really witness to people on his street, and he's just slowly transforming that community, which I think is amazing, because he's just taken God's call on his life seriously and said, I can do something about this right now as me.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? And something so straightforward in a way, and localized, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know I heard one of my colleagues in another district talk about they've produced some bereavement bags. So either when somebody's taken a funeral or through the church, or they're aware of somebody in their street who's had a bereavement, or somebody's died in their street, they've left a bag with some prayers in it, a candle, signs of hope, and saying, we're from the church, and we want to support you during this time, and left them on the doorstep or wherever's appropriate. I know one of the churches, one of the circuits in our district is looking at that idea and is looking to sort of adapt it a little bit and leave bags of hope. And their thinking is, we're going to put them on the doorstep of church members, and then put them on the doorsteps of their neighbours either side, to help equip the church members to start a conversation with their neighbours more intentionally.
Brilliant.
Around mission and who we are as the people of God. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think churches have just become so creative, because we're always hearing stories of prayer angels that are being deposited around villages and towns, and prayer trees and prayer gates where people can tie ribbons on and prayer. And there's just so many amazing things that are happening, and mission definitely has not stopped just because we're in lockdown.
Yeah, and so often we're thinking about worship moving online, which is good. And there are some various statistics around of how many more people are engaging with online worship than usual, which you've got to take a little bit with a pinch of salt. But because how much of it is just people looking for a service that belong to one church and worshipping in lots of places.
Yeah.
But I think there is a real hunger, and I think it's a hunch. I've got no evidence for this, what I'm about to say. But I wonder whether, because it's been more contextual, our worship often, that we're addressing how do we live in the coronavirus time? What does it mean to be the people of God in this place? How do we help each other get through anxious times? That maybe our worship, our preaching online has been more relevant to where people are now. So maybe that's something important to remember when we move out of lockdown, to remember that our preaching has to engage with the everyday lives and issues that people are facing.
Yes, definitely. So in film 3, we're thinking, aren't we, about planning ahead for the future, and how do you make plans for a future that's unknown? But in order to get to that point, we first need to acknowledge and recognise what we're learning and what we're noticing right now, and name some of that stuff. So we've designed some discussion questions for you to do on your own if this is how you're watching the films, but preferably in a group so that you can have some good group discussion. So we will show you these questions and we'll talk you through them, and we really do hope that they bless you and they help you to get your thinking together for what we're learning and what we're noticing in this particular season of lockdown.
So our first group of questions, we've grouped them into kind of two sort of themes. And the first one, we want you to think about yourselves as an individual. And again, we encourage you to get a piece of paper and draw just a simple stick figure in the middle, nothing fancy, so don't worry, and nobody's going to see it except you, so don't worry.
Not a competition.
No, absolutely. And just draw a stick figure, and then around the figure, write your answers to the following questions. During lockdown, what have you appreciated? What have you learnt about yourself? During lockdown, what have you struggled with the most? What have you missed the most? Where have you seen God at work during lockdown in your own life? And what is God saying to you? And maybe what are some of the fears that you've had to face during lockdown? And what do you need to face up to as we move towards coming out of lockdown?
And then once you've done that and you've looked at yourself and how you're feeling right now, we then want to touch on the importance of the church building. So obviously we've touched on this video already about how we're not now in our church buildings. And so the first question is, how important has your building been to your understanding of mission? And what are you learning about being church without using your building? What are you learning about worship? What are you learning about mission? What are you learning about being a community? And so what would mission look like in the future that isn't dependent on a building? And what might you need to help you move from a building-centred model of mission to a more sustainable and flexible model of mission?
They're really challenging questions, aren't they? But it is about how is our mission changing in this time of coronavirus? What are you noticing? What is it that you need to lay down, let go of, because you've discovered you don't actually need it anymore? Or you're perhaps using it in a different way? Who are the people you're engaging with now that you didn't engage with before the lockdown? What mission opportunities have you seen and have you taken up? And or maybe what stopped you engaging in mission during lockdown? And why might that be?
So some challenging questions there for you, but do take your time. This is not designed to be a quick fix, be a quick conversation, but something that you can really think about and mull over in the next few weeks to come. So on to film 3 then. Rachel, do you want to do a quick summary of what film 3 is going to help people to do?
Well, film 3, we're beginning to think about what life might look like in terms of mission as we come out of lockdown. How do we plan for the future when we have absolutely no idea what that future is going to look like?
And is there any point in planning for a future when you don't know what it's going to look like? Is it not just a waste of time?
Shouldn't we just wait and see what happens and go with the flow? We shall see.
We shall see. But thank you so much for watching, for tuning in, and we have enjoyed sharing this time with you.
See you soon.
Bye.